Jennifer from Scrapping Under the Influence. Welcome to the New Year's Eve crop for Country Craft Creations. My project for us tonight is a super simple mini album. We don't use any chipboard. Literally, you're going to use 5 sheets of artisan cardstock, whatever paper you want to mat it with. I literally used all scraps in this. Or you can actually do the base of this with the pattern cardstock if you so choose. I will show you the method for that at the very end of this video. Otherwise, the rest of it's all the same. However, if you're building the base out of pattern cardstock, you really don't even have to mat it, and it's that much faster. So let me just show you really quickly what we got going on here. I used the rest of my paper from the Simple Stories Say Cheese Christmas collection. We went to Disneyland right around Christmas time a couple years ago, so I actually can use this for my pictures from that trip because I haven't done anything with them, which is typical for me. So all you're doing here is you're building very basic pages, just pocket pages. I've added in a couple of little flaps on each page. There are little, 3 of them are this 5 by 5.5. The rest of them are, then 2 of them, one's long, one's short. Not a big deal. We'll get into that in the tutorial. Very simple. You've just got photo mats here. You could use this for pictures. You could use this as a card folio for that matter if you wanted to stick cards in to store them. You can make this as big or as small as you want. This one, the finished size is 6 by 8. You could do this where you make the pages taller, shorter, narrower, however you want to do it. Once you go through the method to build this, possibilities are totally unlimited. I do need to tell you though, this overall concept was actually one that was done by a friend of mine, Lauren Seals. Lauren doesn't do tutorials. Lauren just does kits, mostly page kits and card kits. She had put this together as a make and take at a Doodlebug event I went to in August, and I loved the idea of it, and I changed it up a little. I changed the construction of the pages a little bit differently because hers was just with the pattern paper as your base, and then you added in some photo mats and that kind of thing. I did add in some flaps that were not there before. The flaps are completely optional. If you wanted to leave those out, you absolutely could. This one is very customizable to however you want to make it. So every page has just got the big pocket down at the bottom, a flap of some kind in between. I've just got, like I said, my little photo mats that I've made using my leftover cut-aparts. Another flap here, same thing again. All the way through, you are not going to believe how simple this is to make. It goes together really fast. Doing it this method where you're building out of solid cardstock and then matting it, I would say maybe an hour start to finish. If you're doing it with the pattern cardstock as your base and then just decorating it, 30 minutes tops. It's literally that easy. So let's get into this tutorial and I'll show you how we're going to make this fun little project. Okay, so to start with, you need 5 sheets of cardstock that are 12 inches by 10.5. We're going to score these, if I can pick it up. With the 12-inch side on the top. I'm having scoreboard issues today. Not sure why. Let's try it over that way. There we go. At 6 inches, you're going to turn it a quarter of turn, and you're going to score it again at 2.5 inches. Okay? You're going to do that on all 5 pieces. Okay? What we're going to do now, as soon as I find my scissors, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it over so that the bump from scoring is it's facing up, And then I'm just going to come in here, and hopefully I can get where you can see this. I'm just going to come in here next to that line from the score, okay? And I'm going to cut next to that line up to our score mark that runs across this way, okay? I'm going to do it again on the other side there. And all that's going to do is we're going to lose a little tiny, tiny, tiny piece here. And try to get it straight. If not, it's not really going to matter. It'll be fine. What we're going to do now is we're going to fold this. And we're going to make sure that this is lined up and even top to bottom. Make sure your score line's not off. And we're going to fold and burnish that down. Okay. I'm going to open it back up. And you're going to fold your other two pieces up and burnish those down. But we're not going to glue these down yet. Okay. Make sure everything closes right. You may need to take a tiny, tiny bit more off of where you trimmed these before. It just really kind of depends on how this wants to close. Okay. So when you've got all 5 of them, what we're going to do, I'm going to take 2, take one of these, and we're going to take our glue, maybe we're going to take our glue, it wants to quit fighting with me for a second here. Okay. Well, hopefully we're going to be okay. No, yeah, we're fine. Okay. And we're going to glue all the way around the outside edge. And we're going to get glue here in the middle. You don't want to skimp out too much on your glue because you need that extra couple of seconds once you put these together to be able to slide these and make sure everything is lined up where it needs to be so that your edge here is even. I've got glue everywhere, but it's okay. In there, and we're just gonna burnish this down, wipe up any extra that happens to pop out here, there, and everywhere, because you know how that goes. Okay, and then we're gonna repeat that again with our next one. We're gonna keep doing this till we have all 5 of these attached together. And what's cool about this one, there's a couple different ways you can do this, not the attaching part, but the overall album as a whole. You can do this where you use a full 12 by 12 sheet, score it at, I would score that at 3 to 3.5 inches for your inside pocket height. You can add as many pages in here as you want. We're doing 5 sections. You could do 6, you could do 10, you could do 15, you could do however many you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. You can change the height, you can change the width, you can adjust this one any way you want to any size you want it to be, which is really kind of cool. The other fun thing you can do with this one, and I will have an example for you at the end of the video, you can do this where you don't start with your basic solid cardstock. You can actually do this entire album with your pattern cardstock. The only thing with that is you just need to be careful that whatever cardstock you're using, because of how we're cutting and doing these little pockets that fold up from the bottom, that you're not using something directional on that back side that's folding up on your pockets, because Otherwise, it looks really weird. Okay. All right. This is gluing down okay. Got one more to go. You know, and these are a fun one. This is a simple enough project, too, that you can do this, you know, if you have, you know, kids that you need to do a project with, or, you know, I know there's somebody in the scrapbookers group that was doing one, did that little candy bowl that Tamara did that's so cute, for a bunch of seniors at a senior center she volunteers at, I think it was, and I may be remembering that wrong, but I know she had a whole bunch of senior citizens that made a whole bunch of those little candy dishes for like table centerpieces, and they were just adorable. But this is a project that's simple enough, you can do that, you know, you could use it in that kind of situation as well. Okay, so now, just to give this a minute to dry, I'm actually going to clip it all together. And I got these kind of fun new craft clips in the Traveling Christmas Box Swap that showed up today. So I think I'm going to give those a try here. So I'm just going to, oh yeah, I like these. These are cool. I have no idea where they came from. I may have to get some more. Okay. So we just want to make sure that this is good and stuck together before we move on and go in and put our pages down and so on and so forth. So right now we've got a 6x8 album. I am going to add, you can add some flaps in here, which we're going to do that here in just a second. You can leave it as is. This would be great as, you know, somewhere to store cards. So if you had a bunch of cards made up, you know, to tuck them in the little pockets inside here would be really cool. You know, if we'd added one more page to this, we could have done this as like a card organizer for 2020, you know, that you could get your birthday cards that you send out ready and put them in the months that you need to send them out, and then, you know, they're organized and ready to go. Couple, you know, several different things you can do with this. This would also be a good one for, you know, kids, you know, for pictures for trips or, you know, different little things that they've saved and whatnot, that kind of thing. So what we're going to do, I think we're going to add a couple of little flaps in the centers here. So let me find more black cardstock. So we're going to dig into my scrap pile here and see what we got. Bury my paper trimmer over there. Okay. And we can do flaps pretty much any size we want to. I think I'm going to do, okay, so this is a 6-inch, not quite 6-inch. So let's say we're going to do a 5-inch flap. So I'm going to cut this down to 5.5 inches, excuse me, and we're going to score it at 1/2 inch. And then on one of these other pages, so we're going to do a couple that way. 5.5, but we're going to score it 1/2 inch. And how long is this? 8.5. So let's do a couple of smaller ones. Let's go 4 3/4. But we again will score it 1/2 inch. This one is just about 6 inches, so we're going to score that one at 1/2 inch. And we're going to do one really tiny one, and this scrap is, well, we're going to cut it to 4 inches so it's a nice even size here. Okay, so for our little flappy doos. So this one is a little bit over 4. Actually, I'm not going to use that one. I think that's going to be too small. So we're going to do one more that's 5.5. Okay. So this one is 5.5 by 5.5. Let's score this at 1/2 inch. I've got 2 more just like it in here somewhere. So 5.5, 5.5. And this one is also 5.5. Oh, this one's longer. So let's trim this one down too. Should check that in the first place. Oh. So 5.5 by 5.5. Score that at 1/2 inch. And then this one is 4.5 by 5.5. We're going to score this one at 1/2 inch on the 4.5 inch side. And this one is also 4.5 by, and this one's 4.5 by 6. We're still going to do this at 1/2 inch. Okay. So now we figure out where we want to put these. So this one I've got that's just slightly smaller than 1/2 inch. I could do this at the top of one of the pages. I could do it in the middle here, basically wherever we want to do it. But I think I'm going to start with the 5.5 by 5.5. So go ahead and fold this over. Burnish that down. We're going to put that down. Just to the inside of that first page. Okay? And we're also going to glue our pockets closed. So on this, we can either glue these or we can use 1/8 inch score tape. It's up to you. I think I'm going to go ahead and just run a tiny bit of glue down each side. Oops. Let's not get the glue all over the other page because that's not very good. I've lost my thing again. There we go. Okay. And the reason I didn't attach my, and of course now it's going to fight with me because okay. The reason we're not attaching those pockets down before we add these flaps is because we could do a flap that's the entire length of this page. In fact, you know what? Let's go ahead and do one. Let's do one like that instead. Just so I can show you kind of what I'm talking about here. So we're going to go 7 7/8 on height. Oh, this is folded in half, I wonder. And then we're going to make it, what is it, 5 3/8 wide. Yeah, so we're going to make it, yeah, we'll go with 5 3/8, that's fine. I'm going to move it over 1/2 inch, just because I've got the thumbs already scored. So this ended up being 5 7/8 by 7 7/8. And what we're going to do is we're going to adhere this one down right in here, like so. And then this pocket's going to close up over the top of that. Okay? Now we want to double check that that's going to close right, which right now it doesn't look like it's going to. So I'm actually going to take just another sliver off of this. I'm going to take about 1/16 of an inch off of this pocket that's closing over the side of our flap, just to ensure that all of this is going to close correctly once we put it down. Okay, so we are going to line this up, center that up on there. I'm actually going to fold that whole thing over, press it down to make sure I get it in the right place so that the book will still close the way we need it to close. I'm going to open that back up, make sure our flap still closes, and it does. And then we're going to do our little glue here and our little glue here and close that up. So now you have this nice little flap in the middle of this page set. I'm going to close that pocket. Okay, and go to our next set. We've got another one of the 5.5 by 5.5 flaps that's scored at 1/2 inch. So you're going to have a 5 by 5.5 inch flap. And we're going to put that in here, like so. Except not covering up the top of our pocket. Something slightly off on this one, but that's okay. All right. And then the same thing again, we're just going to close up these pockets. Finish that down, do our other side. And you do end up with a fairly sturdy book for there not being any chipboard involved in this one, which is kind of fun. Okay, so this one is this one is 5.5 by 4 3/4, scored at 1/2 inch. Again, and this one I'm going to actually this way. Okay. And again, we're going to glue down our pocket. Okay, we're on our last one. So this is our 5.5 by 5.5 again. I'm going to fold that over one more time, burnish it down, and get that in here. And really we could even turn this one so it flips up that way, and I think that's what we're going to do on this last one. Okay, so I am going to center this up, the top, push it down, and we're going to go ahead and my pocket here not stick. It didn't. All right. That one down. All right. So at this point, our base is done. Now we can go ahead and mat and decorate this. I'm not sure which paper I'm using for this one. Probably the rest of my Say Cheese, Simple Stories Say Cheese Christmas paper, because I do have some more of that left. I did buy some extra over and above what I had from my design team package, and I still have some left, so I think that's what I'm going to mat this with. So I'm going to mat this, and then I will be back to show you what we can do to cover up our edge here. If you want to do that, you can leave it as is, but I do have a way to kind of cover that up that's going to be kind of fun. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here is our finished album. We are not going to do anything on the spine here, and I know I said earlier we were. I couldn't remember for sure when I had done the other one how I did this. You do actually leave this blank because when you open this up, it does fold completely on top of itself. So if we wrap this or anything, see how that seam binding kind of bows up on us? If we wrap this or we put anything on here, that's what's going to happen. So you want to just leave it as is. It'll be fine. All I've done here is I've just, to reinforce, because we're not using any chipboard, and inside on the pages we've got basically 2 pieces of artisan cardstock that are stuck together, so it kind of gives a little more weight. What I did on the front and then on the back as well is I did double mat this. So I've got my base, I've got it matted with some solid artisan, and then my pattern paper. For this I did use leftovers of the Say Cheese Christmas that I had in my design team package for November? Yes, November. That I still had pieces left. I literally used up almost all of my scraps. I have probably not even an entire sheet's worth of paper left out of this collection, just because this is a good one to use up scraps on. So what we ended up with on the inside, after I've matted everything, I've got cut aparts that I've just mounted on just plain cardstock on some of the flaps and some of the backs. For the matting, I did use solid cardstock. I've used some of the ephemera pieces I had left. Yeah, so I've got solid cardstock here. And, you know, just go through basic matting. I left, you know, basically measure this, deduct 1/8 of an inch from the height and the width, and that's all you need to do to mat. Very, very simple. This thing goes together so stinking fast, I can't even tell you. It's very, very easy to put together. Will take you no time at all to do. And the really cool thing about this, because there's no chipboard, you can do the entire album out of just pattern paper. And in fact, my friend Lauren, that this is based on, so Lauren does not do tutorials. Lauren typically does page kits and card kits. But she had taught this at a Doodlebug event that I attended. And I changed it up. I added the flaps in there. I cut it down size-wise, that kind of thing. The way she had done it was with just the pattern paper. So just to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like if you wanted to try that and how you need to do that, I've got just a piece of, what is this? Prima. Sorry, I drew a blank there. Same thing, 12 by 10.5. You're going to score it at 6 inches and at 2.5. And it's the exact same thing. When you fold it up, you're just going to fold it up like so. But what you need to keep in mind, and I did not notice when I was cutting this piece and prepping this piece to show you, is the back side of this is directional. So see how when I fold it over, all of my writing right here is upside down? And it would be the same type of thing if we did it this way. That's the only thing if you're going to do it with just pattern cardstock and not use artisan and then matte. That's going to be the one thing to keep in mind, that whatever is on the back side of the paper that you're folding up here is going to be upside down if it's directional. If it's not directional, which I know I had one in here that wasn't directional. Bear with me for just a second. I know I had one that would have worked. This first one was. Okay, so for example, if we took this one, we're going to cut this to 10.5. And then go ahead and score this. And honestly, if you do this with just the pattern and not doing the base with the solid cardstock and then matting, this thing goes together that much faster. So literally, all we're doing here is folding up there, folding over here. I would still recommend doing the little trim right there on that score line just so it folds a little bit flatter. But you're just going to assemble it the exact same way. You would go ahead and cut and fold all of those pieces, and then you're just going to glue them together back to back, and you're going to have essentially the same effect. It's a really fun project. It's super simple. You can do one of these in an hour tops. It's very easy to do. So I hope you enjoy. Of course, because this is for the New Year's Eve crop, anybody that does this and shares pictures will be entered into a drawing for a prize. And I hope you all enjoy making this. Thanks. Bye.